Hi, everyone. Hi, guys. Welcome, welcome. Hi, guys. Come on in, come on in. All right. They're coming in. Continue to join, guys. Hi, Emma. And I see Kahmaria.
Hi,
Kahmaria,
Sophia.
just request to join the live and I'll add you. How's it going, Emma?
Pretty good. Pretty good. How are you?
It's very well, thank you.
Great.
Hi, Kahmaria. Yeah, just request to join the live and I'll join you.
I'm just getting comfy on this.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Keep coming in. Come through, come through, come through. Come through. Okay. I think Kamari could be joining now.
Okay.
Oh, I see another request. There we are. Accept. Awesome. Okay. I think she might be coming through.
Okay. And do this instead. Hey, Mary.
Hi, everybody. Hi. Hi, Mary.
Hey, everyone.
Thanks for joining the live, guys.
Okay.
Oh, 1 second. I'm gonna have to add her again. Give me one quick sec. Oh. All right, invite. Okay, hopefully you can get on. It says request sent. Awesome, Kamaria, you're there. Just turn the camera around, my dear.
I see Kahmaria's beautiful plants.
I know, they're gorgeous.
Yeah, what a beautiful space. There should be a little like arrow, double arrow that you can switch. Like you should see a microphone, a camera,
Okay,
and then the arrows.
Press that, the double arrow.
the double arrow.
Yeah.
I see a question mark.
No, when you're looking at your screen,
Uh-huh.
right? You're gonna see a microphone. Do you see a microphone and a camera? Right when you're looking at your screen.
No, I don't. I see comments
That's at the
and
bottom.
yeah.
But right under you, right under where you're looking at, it should be a microphone, a camera, and a double arrow.
Oh, now I see it. Yeah, you
Yeah.
know why? Because it
Okay.
was the brightness. I couldn't see it. Hi, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome. We have Queen Kamaria in the house with Emma. So a lot of you guys know Kamaria from our creative expressions when we were promoting creative expressions and our art therapy back in the summer. And so we've all had the great fortune of working together before. So it's amazing. It's amazing to have you back. So you guys all know how we start, and then I'm going to let Kamaria and Emma have a chat. So Canadian Women of Color Leadership Network is a nonprofit grassroots organization that was established in 2018 in Canada's National Capital Region of Ottawa. We recognize that our office is located on the unceded and unsurrendered land of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We acknowledge and respect all First Nation, Inuit, and Métis people for their valuable past and present contributions to this land. We respectfully acknowledge and appreciate our presence on the Algonquin Anishinaabe ancestral lands, We're grateful to have this opportunity to be present in this territory with you today, and we will continue to work in solidarity towards improving the lives of our diverse peoples on this shared land and acknowledge the importance and commitment to decolonization towards working in partnership with our Indigenous communities. We are founded on the pillars of women in leadership, wellness, economic development, and partnerships. We operate through a lens of an intersectional, feminist, post-colonialistic framework in all of our objectives. Our aim is to see racialized women, two-spirit, trans, and non-binary femmes reflected in upper-level leadership and management positions in the workplace by providing the necessary skills, tools, and connections to mitigate systemic barriers. And with that, I'm going to jump off and come back at the end. So have a great conversation, guys.
Okay. Thanks so much, Sophia. Hi, Kahmaria. It's so great to be working with you again. And welcome, everyone. I will just take a minute to introduce myself. But first, I just want to thank the folks at the Canadian Women of Color Leadership Network, Sophia, Delia, and Raquel, who've been supporting this series. As Sophia mentioned, my name is Emma Louie. I'm the Holistic Health Director with the Canadian Women of Color Leadership Network, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm based in Gatineau, which is also on Algonquin-Anishinaabe territory. This is the fourth burnout and holistic health session. We're actually supposed to have Inabel Weetaipo and Luna I seen talk about intergenerational trauma, and they're both not feeling well, so we wish them well, and so happy and grateful that Kahmaria, you could join us today. It's so great to be in conversation with you again.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to see you again. We had such a wonderful time, like you said, with the women's workshops, and you're super, just talented in giving when it comes to women and healing and things like that. So I really love having conversations with you. I think that I think we have a lot of similar ideals when it comes to this topic. So I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Yeah, well, I feel the same about you, and you have so many amazing skills and talents. So I'm really excited for you to share all your experience and your wisdom with folks who are joining.
Yeah.
I'll just talk a little bit about myself, and then I'll pass it back to you to talk about your work a little bit more. So I am. Oh, and actually, I just want to note that the session with Luna and Inabel is going to happen in January. So for folks who are joining, stay tuned for a new date. But I'll just talk a little bit about the work that I do. I am Toisanese and Cantonese, and I grew up with the idea that food is medicine. So I work in nutrition, I work in craniosacral therapy and theta healing, which is focused on core beliefs. I'm also a activist, so I worked in water justice for a long time. I also am an editor with Rabble and a member of Cooperative Bibliothèque, which is a land-based co-op just outside of Wakefield. I work with people in care work, so that's like frontline workers, caregivers, and so many people experiencing burnout. So it's one of the reasons why I wanted to create this series, or why we wanted to host the series, is so many people with the pandemic, mental health crises, and so forth are really experiencing burnout, especially in the last couple years, and then wanted to have a conversation about how we go about supporting people through these times. And I really wanted to bring in people who would draw some of the connections to these bigger systems that are contributing to burnout. So that's things like racism, white supremacy, the capitalist economic system in which we live, colonization, and how these are sitting in our bodies, and what kind of healing and work we can do to shift these that we're experiencing. I also work in intergenerational trauma, and Kahmaria is also going to talk about ancestral healing and connections to our ancestors, which is, I think, just so deeply powerful and healing. So excited to talk to her about that. So with that, I'll just pass it to Kahmaria now. But I will say, I mean, you have so many talents and skills. dance and you perform, and I know you teach people dancing as well. And then I understand you make clothes and like amazing healthy smoothies. So I'll pass it to you to talk a little bit more about your work.
Sure. Sure, sure. Thank you so much. So, I am what you call a person that wears many hats. Um, I grew up in Canada, although my birthplace is Jamaica. And so I'm very connected when it comes to culture and roots. And that's kind of the idea that I grew up with in my household. My parents were very much into, the culture that comes along with reggae music and Bob Marley, and everything, the philosophy that they profess, and so I got the idea, when they taught me about Marcus Garvey, that back to Africa theory became relevant to me, especially growing up in Canada and experiencing racism. And so, because of all of that in my background, I became very passionate about culture. And when I started to look deeper into my culture, I realized how much I identified with it, how much I loved it, and how much I wanted other people to experience it, whether they were young or old, whatever age, And so I became a teacher, and I realized that there was a lack of culture in the curriculum. And so I later on did my thesis on culturally responsive curriculum. And along with that, I talked about how because dance was such a healing thing for me, the drums, the movement, the storytelling that's related to the movement. And I realized how much it healed me. And so I decided that I would start a business teaching dance to youth and bringing it to the curriculum in elementary school. That's kind of how I started. So my business, Onyxtasia African Diaspora Productions, does that. It professes to bring us back to our original greatness by connecting us to our identity, our cultural identity. So in that business, I not only teach dance, but perform. I do traditional West African Caribbean style storytelling, Anansi stories, they're best known as. And I also do Afrocentric fashions. And so, and the reason why I did that is because I felt that it should be incorporated unapologetically into our wardrobe, without feeling that it was just for a specific time. I wanted it to be the norm. I wanted it to be something we're proud of wearing. And so a lot of my designs are contemporary. Some people call them Ankara designs, but it's basically business type attire, but has a cultural spin on it. So that's kind of what I do. But if you, in that same token, if you read about your culture, and you realize that there's so many different aspects of it. There's music, there's dance, there's food. And along with that food, is the nutrition, aspect of it. And so I realized growing up that we used to, in Jamaica, we have a drink called Irish moss or sea moss. And so we drank it just because it tasted so great. And probably a lot of people definitely our ancestors knew how nutritious it was. But I, growing up, didn't know that until I did my research. And so I noticed that sea moss has 92 of 100 vitamins that we're supposed to take in our bodies. And so I decided, you know what? Everyone should know this. Everyone should be drinking this. Everybody should be eating this. So I started a business called Made with Sankofa. And, we can talk more about the Sankofa piece later, but basically, it just means taking the knowledge of our ancestors and bringing it to modern day and using it for our health. So that's another thing that I do at the side, is make tropical flavored smoothies with sea moss and moringa. Hmm. Yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
Amazing. Thanks so much for sharing. All of that resonates so much, and like drawing from like the wisdom of our ancestors and the foods that they used to eat, and like all the things that they used to do to like heal and like and balance health and like promote health is so important. And I think that I actually for lunch I just had like in Chinese culture, Cantonese culture, like food is medicine. Like there's no
Yeah,
separation. So like for lunch I had this soup that my mom made, which was like chicken and like ginseng and like wild yam, and that's like a normal meal, but it's also so healing as well. So whenever I go there, she has this like ready for me, and it's just so like it's just part of like day to day. It's not something that you do separately. It's just infused in what we do.
exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I love
Yeah.
that.
And
I love that. It's a lifestyle. It's not just when you're sick you have chicken noodle soup. You know, it's a lifestyle.
exactly. Yeah. And I think too, like so I'm curious to hear more about the smoothies because with burnout, it's really people's immune systems are weakened. And there's maybe I'll
Mm,
just take a moment to talk a little bit about symptoms of burnout, but there can be so many things like I think the biggest thing is fatigue, and then the like whether that's on the physical, emotional, mental or spiritual level, people really experiencing that. And then but the opposite can happen too, like being wired, like not being able to sleep and being in fight or flight, a constant state of fight or flight, and that really taxes our system over time. It also makes it so that there's like cortisol in our system, which over time that also weakens the immune system as well. And so doing things like that support our immune system on a daily basis, like whether that's through herbs. Our first session was with Mary Rufael and Sun Shan, and they really talked about herbs and like incorporating those on a day-to-day basis. The last session was with Saran James Vaughn, and she also talked about foods that we can eat on a day-to-day basis. But I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about the smoothies, and like I know that they boost the immune system, and curious to hear more about that.
definitely. So sea moss, of course, it comes from the sea, so there is a lot of iodine in it, and that's one thing that I've heard some nutritionists say, maybe too much iodine, limit your intake and things like that. But I think that it has so many other nutrients in it that you can't just focus on just one thing, right? So there's protein, there's magnesium, there's antioxidants, there's calcium, collagen for your skin, your bones, your hair, your nails, vitamin C. There's so much in, so many nutrients and vitamins in sea moss that you get so many benefits. um, I think that we can't rule out, we can't talk about nutrition without talking about what we just experienced with the pandemic. A lot of people don't realize that your food either brings your immune system up or pulls it down. When you have a lot of starchy foods, white, dairy, white flour, things like that, that actually, makes compromises your immune system. So you need to be, it's all about balance. You need to be putting something else back in your system to fight against those things. There's nothing wrong with eating those things once in a while, but just know that your body is working overtime when you're eating those things. So we need to be conscious of what we're putting in our bodies. So when you're eating sea moss or drinking it, you know that you're putting something else in your body that will kind of help fight against other things, the other junk foods that we're eating, right? So sea moss was made famous by a Dr. Sebi. And it doesn't mean that it wasn't around before, hundreds of years before that, but he noticed the benefits of CMOS, and he just professed it, and showed, he proved how it increased the density of your bones, and it increased it decreased mucus in your body. And a lot of people don't know that mucus is something that it causes a lot of illnesses, right? It's not really, it's a symptom of an illness, but it's also something that contributes to your illnesses, right? So the best thing that you can do is put things in your body that reduces mucus in your bones, in your system. So that is one thing that CMOS does. And for me, I thought, why do we don't have to look at it as medicine. We can look at it as something delicious, right? And so I decided to make smoothies because, one thing that I like to do is intermittent fasting. I think a lot of people may have heard that, and it's good to do that once in a while for your body. And so when I do that, I a lot of times I drink smoothies. But we don't have to be fasting just to drink smoothies. We can drink them anytime. It can be a meal replacement or a meal booster, right? And so for me, I love mango, tropical flavors. I love guava. I love, blueberry and things like that. And so myself and my business partner, Billy, he and I, concocted some delicious flavors and added the CMOS to it. And the thing is, CMOS is tasteless, right? It's flavorless. And so you can add it to anything. You can add it to soup, you can add it to tea, you can add it to smoothies. And so, this is a fun way to boost your immune system, a delicious way to boost your immune system. Mm-hmm.
Those sound amazing. Oh, sorry, something just
something
just fell. That sounds amazing, and like it's so handy. Like, so this is great for folks who are joining, because I think burnout, like, people are quite busy, right? We burn out. I mean, there's lots of reasons why we burn out, but I mean, a lot of it is like chronic work or chronic stress, or like overwork, and like, so people quite busy, and then also people who are caregivers, like parents, like don't have a lot of time. So like something that's like quick and like, they can take on the go, like smoothies, and like so packed with nutrients, you can put so much in there, and like you said, tasty. Like being healthy doesn't have to taste bad. Exactly.
And I think that another reason why we burn out is because we don't give our bodies enough. Yes, we're busy, and we have to manage our time. We wear many hats. We're mothers. We're working. We're all over the place, but we need energy to do that. And the best way I can think of as an analogy is a car. If you don't put good fuel in your car, you're not going to go very far. Right? And the quality of the fuel that you put in your car also determines how well that car runs, right? When we go to the gas pump, we see different kinds of petrol, right? It's not just one kind, and you notice that the price goes up with the quality of gas that you can buy. And so there's a reason for that, because the purity of what you're putting in your car makes it run well. And so if you think of your body like that, what am I putting in? What is, what does my system need to make me go farther? To, these are the things that are going to save us in the long run, right? And so I think that when it comes to nutrition, yes, we need to eat well, but we also need to sleep well. We need to, make sure that we're getting rest, and everyone's different. Some people need 8 hours, some people, need little naps in the day and things like that. So I would say when it comes to burnout, also know your body. and know what you need, and don't be, ashamed. If you need a little nap in the day, then that's what you need to get through the rest of the day. And I think that we don't, culturally, getting back to our culture as well, I think culturally, I think we had a conversation about this a little while back where, it's almost like we're ashamed to take breaks and to take, the rest that we need, because culturally it wasn't seen as okay. Our parents might say, like, like, what do you mean you need a nap? Like, get to it, you know? So, I think that I would, advise those two things. Look at what you're putting in your body, and also, maybe, psychologically, or socially, we're prone to not, we're prone to be ashamed to rest.
I think that's a really important point because it's so part of like our culture, and it's like here, and it's so part of like capitalist society where your productivity
Mhm.
is your worth. And so if you're not doing things, then all the ideas like that, it's like lazy, or you need to be doing this and that. And I think that, like, I think in addressing burnout, we really need to shift that thinking, and look at the deeper reasons about why. And like, it can be, lots of different reasons, like being from like an immigrant family, like work ethic was really strong. And then I think race plays a part in it too, just like feeling like, being a person of color, a woman of color, like feeling like a need to like measure up, and that
Mm.
that we were less than because we weren't
Work
white. And I
twice as
think
hard.
work twice as hard, exactly. And so I think, having compassion for some of the deeper reasons is important too. And then what you mentioned, like body awareness, like really like what your body needs, right? We are all so different. That's something that Saran talked about last week. Bonita, I think I saw Bonita on, who was in the second session, but just really knowing what's happening in our bodies. Like, is it rest that we need, is it play that we need, and like really tuning in, because I think that's part of the healing, is just there's so much disconnect with our bodies, with the earth, and with each other, that healing, I think, in burnout is also about reconnection as well,
Mhm.
and reconnection to culture as well. So I want to shift to that and ask you about, so you identify, I think, as a cultural activist, and I wonder if you can talk a little bit more about that, what
Mhm.
that, and your work
Mhm.
in that.
Yes, I really am passionate about culture when it comes to West African, Caribbean, Black culture. And the reason why is because, I think that there's something to be said about knowing who you are, your identity. I think how knowing that is how we walk through the world, and take space for ourselves. It kind of empowers us, it energizes us, and makes us proud when we walk into a space. And for me, I noticed that the more that I learned about my ancestry, the more that I learned about, my gifts and talents, and I connected with things that I don't know why I know what I know, but it's really a part of my DNA. And it's something that I should be proud of, and so when I learned this, I realized, what? Everyone needs to have a connection, to their culture, to kind of bring themselves back to greatness. And I think that sometimes when we walk through the world, we lose a little bit of that. We lose a little bit of who we are, and whether that be because of our age, I think maturity makes us, when you're younger, you kind of want to conform. When you're younger, you kind of want to be with the crowd and, be a little bit more like everyone else. You don't want to stand out. But I found that when I understood more about my culture and who I am, I realized I didn't have to, um, you know, blend in. I knew that I wanted to be proud of who I am, and I wanted to stand out. I wanted to, um, be different and unique. And there's value to that. And so when I say that I'm a cultural activist, I'm someone that advocates for this uniqueness, you know, this culture, getting in touch with your culture and your identity and who you are, because there's something great about that, and that you're bringing this greatness to the world and you're adding to the world. You're not taking away from the world by being who you are, right? And so I noticed that when I was working in an elementary school, and I was working as you know, and as an extracurricular activity, I brought traditional West African and Caribbean dance to children, and I noticed how their whole demeanor changed when they were able to showcase this talent, because they were coming from places where they were, you know, there was a lot of trauma, there was war torn, they were coming from war torn countries and experienced a lot of violence, and they experienced, you know, and so it's almost like they were shying away from what they left behind. They wanted to leave it all behind. But what I did was I said, you know what, there's a lot of positivity from where you come from. You know, there's a lot of, you know, knowledge, and there's a lot of positivity to bring to the world, you know. And so I think that just by, you know, putting on traditional costumes and showing them beadwork and showing them dance movement and how talented they were, they would pick up dance routines like that, and just that it was just natural to them. And I think that it just reminded them of who they are and where they come from, and that it's not all bad, you know. And so I realized, you know what, more people need to get in touch with this. And I just, everywhere I go, I just make sure people know that wherever you're from, wherever, you know, because Canada is, you know, multicultural in the sense that, you know, we're all from somewhere else except for our Indigenous brothers and sisters, right? And so why do we need to leave it at the door? You know, when we come in, why don't we bring it and make our culture richer? So that's kind of my perspective when it comes to cultural activism.
Thanks so much for sharing that. It's so, I had goosebumps when you were talking. It's so inspiring, and as I've gotten to know you this year, like through the Creative Expressions program, like the word that strikes me the most is proud. Like you are so proud of your culture and yourself, and that's so inspiring. And I think we need more of that, because I think you're right that, like, you know, some of the folks that I work with have either experienced trauma themselves or intergenerational trauma, whether that's, like you mentioned, the war that they've experienced, or their parents or grandparents experienced, or colonization or whatnot. And there can be, you know, like that's like a lot for them to process. And then I think it's so important for them to connect to the beauty and the love that comes through their ancestors as well, that is in their DNA. And that's so important to, like, we can hold both, right? Like it's important to have spaces where we process that trauma, but it's also important that in those spaces we remember the wisdom and like the beauty and all of that that comes through our ancestral lines as well. So
Exactly.
so you've so you've talked about dance as one way to connect to culture. What are some of the other ways? And you mentioned food a little bit as well. Are there any other ways that that you connect to your culture that you can share with folks?
Hmm. Yeah, I would say language, definitely. Being from Jamaica, you know, we speak patois, and for so many years, you know, we were supposed to speak the Queen's English, you know, and it was shamed, you know, to speak patois. But when you look at the long history, you know, there's, I think the University of West Indies is, you know, has a lot of research on this and how it's an amalgamation of many languages. Patois has French, it has you know, it has Spanish, it has English, it has Portuguese, you know, it has grammar from Africa. You know, it's such a phenomenon, you know. And how when it came about, you know, it came about because our, you know, when a lot of our people were taken through the Atlantic slave trade, we came from so many different countries and we needed to speak to each other. And we created something beautiful. And, to not be proud of what was created, I think is we'd be remiss if we didn't. So there's one way, is to preserve our language, preserve patois, preserve our Creole. That is something that we created that's unique and beautiful. And I think another way to preserve and identify with your culture is not only dance, but music. When you think about the history of music, a lot of people don't realize that um, things like R&B music came from West Africa. Like it doesn't really make sense. Like hip hop music, how it started, Muta Baruka, people like that who started with dub poetry, and how it came to the Americas, and jazz music and how it's when you look at the actual musical notes and how it's connected to, drumming and all of these things. We need to be proud of what we've created when it comes to music and gospel music and country music. So many people don't realize the history of these things. And I would also, say, even food. In the Caribbean, again, our motto is in Jamaica, out of many, one people. And so many people from different cultures live in Jamaica. We have East Indian people, we have Chinese people, we have Spanish and Portuguese people and African people living in one tiny island. So we have tasted food and put our recipes together and mixed it together to make something, beautiful. We have roti, we have all these things that just came together, and I think that we need to look at it not just as something that we put in our mouths, but think about the long history of where these things came from, like curry, like where does that come from? It's kind of like everything that we do tells a story about who we are and who our ancestors were, and when we look at where those spices came from, where did nutmeg come from, where did ackee come from, when you look at when you trace the steps of even the different fruits and vegetables that are on the island, you realize, okay, Grenada, nutmeg came from Grenada. This ackee came from this side of the world. All these different places, you're telling a story about who you are and what has happened, in your country over the years. So I think that, I think about these things, where did this come from? Just kind of think deeper about what we're eating, be conscious and be aware. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much richness in thinking about the origins of things and where they came from, and to your point about like a lot of different cultures in Jamaica. My family has a connection to Jamaica in that
Oh,
my great grandfather moved there. There was a trade
wow.
agreement between China and Jamaica in like the early 1900s, and
Mhm.
so he moved there, and my parents came here to Canada, and my grandmother and my mom were like, "Come here and live with us," and he's like, "Nope." I'm staying in Jamaica, so he lived the rest of his life. He lived the
I don't
rest of his
blame
life
him.
in Jamaica. I don't blame him either. So anyway, and so like we're Toisanese. Most of my family is Toisanese. It's a small region in southern China, but there are a lot of folks from that area that moved to Jamaica at that time. So I really hear you about the different mix of cultures and like and beauty in that and like beauty in that diversity. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, and it sounds like you've done a lot of learning about your culture, and I want to ask you, like, what are some tips that you would share with folks who might just be reconnecting to their cultures, like for like a lot of Black, Indigenous, or people of color that were disconnected to their cultures, and because we live in a country that is predominantly white, and so like I experienced the same when I was younger, where I hid that part of myself. I didn't want to stand out, and so as I've gotten older, learning about it more, but curious to hear your thoughts on like how people can connect to their cultures.
Yeah, I think that we need to make it fun. It can't be a bitter pill that you have to take. It can't be homework. It can't be, it has to be natural and organic. And, it has to be, something that just comes naturally. So I would say, um, put yourself in a space where you can get in touch with your roots by, like, for instance, going to a museum, going to read books, going to, make it a fun thing. For me, I like storytelling. I like to, in the past, for the library summer programs, I did storytelling for families and their children. And so while we are telling the story, you're learning about the culture. You're listening to the story, and it's lovely because there's always a kind of an underlying lesson when it comes to Anansi stories and things like that. And so it was something fun. We were dancing, we were clapping, we're singing, we're chanting, and learning at the same time. So I would say, don't force it. And I always say a lot of people have this love-hate relationship when it comes to Black History Month, right? At least for me, that's how I feel. I love it because it's important and we need to share, and we need that time to focus on things that we don't think about every day, but at the same time, it's kind of it's kind of time when, why, I ask myself, why is it only that month? Why only February? Why isn't it 365, right? And so I would say try to do something every day, like a little bit every day. It shouldn't be just in February, right? I would like to see, libraries ask me to come, do the storytelling, in September. It doesn't always have to be in February. Take a little bit of time, every day to kind of learn a little bit something about you. Maybe just do that. Look at your plate. Think about the food that you're eating and maybe try to find out, okay, well, I don't know if you know this fruit, it's called chocho. Find out, what is chocho? Where does it come from? Why do my people eat it? Because a lot of it is, socially, we eat certain foods because of their easy access, or because they're cheaper to buy, things like this. So just kind of you're going down your own little wormhole and pick one thing to find out more information about, I would say.
It's so helpful. Yeah, the day to day I think is huge, and little and like fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So for folks who join late, we're with Kahmaria Pingue. Pingue, is that how you pronounce it? And so we are talking about burnout and holistic health. And then I just want to open it up to folks in the audience if you have any questions for Kahmaria, who's been talking about culture and food and music and dance. And while folks are thinking about this, I might ask you, the like your work over the years in working with young people and other folks on dance, and also music too. How do you see that as healing or helpful to burnout? Like, what are some of the changes that you see in people after you work with them?
I'm really glad you brought that up because it's kind of like storytelling. I see dance as storytelling. So, um, you know, that's another thing that people can do who want to get in touch with their roots is you know, look at where, you know, where a certain dance comes from, and what is the story that that dance is meant to tell. Um, I think that when I'm dancing, it's a kind of a release. It's good exercise, it gets your heart rate up, but it's something that makes you feel like you're connected to a dance that my ancestors were doing. You know, the same, this is the same dance that my ancestors, and it just kind of makes me think like, wow, I'm so connected to them, you know, and also it's a release because um, you know, it's such an artistic way to express yourself. And there's no wrong way to do it. You know, it's just a matter of, um, you know, um, body movement. I think we're made to move. You know, people, we're not made to be sedentary. We're not made to just sit at a desk all day, sit in school all day. We're made to move. I mean, even our digestive system, you know, if we're sitting all the time, you know, it's not flowing as it should. So movement, you know, has to do with your blood circulation. It has to do with your digestive system. It has to do with you know, your mind and oxygen getting to your brain, all of these things. So as much as it's art, and it is health, right? So I think that when it comes to dance, I think that you get a little bit of energy, you get a little bit of endorphins, you know, because everything is just moving along, you know, the way it should. And it doesn't have to be, you know, hours long. It could just be just a few minutes. Put on some music, you know, a 5 minute song, and you know, and just move. You know, I think is it's really, it changes your whole demeanor when you dance. And someone says, I've never seen someone dancing angry, you know, an angry dancer, right? So it's really hard to be angry and dance. Right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, so many good points there. I think that, like, and then like the emphasis on music too, I think is really important. And like, we had a bit of taste of that when we did the creative expressions program with you, and then you also did the dance, and then the beating, and then all that stuff. So all of that combined is just so beautiful and powerful. And I think for folks who like people with physical disabilities who are not able to dance, I think the music, and even, you know, like parts of the bodies that they are able to move,
Hmm.
just kind of feeling the music
Absolutely.
too is so important.
Yeah, yeah. I like to bring props like handkerchiefs or feathers, something, anything that you know, you can wave around and just to express movement is beautiful. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, thanks so much for that. I will shift a little bit to I know you've done some, you know, we're talking about health and the different ways in which health shows up. And during this pandemic, we really saw like the focus on mental health come up, which is so good and so important that we talk about it. And I know you've worked on mental health in Black communities. I wonder if you can talk about that a little bit, and how you know, what advice would you give to Black folks or other folks to care for themselves, and for each other during these times, and really, you know, supporting each other's mental health?
Yes, I have worked with children experiencing, you know, behavioral regulation issues, and we don't really think about that as mental health, but it's about, you know, teaching them, you know, cognitive behavioral therapy, right? Because the mind is connected to our behaviors, right? So if you're feeling anxiety, you know, it's about controlling and taking control of your emotions in your mind. And it's kind of mind over matter almost, right? But we don't always get taught that. You know, children aren't taught, you know, cognitive behavioral therapy as a norm. Um, And so I think that when it comes to mental health, we have to look at it as the norm. Like it can't be just, you know, someone who has anxieties. You know, it has to be um, an everyday thing where you learn these skills. I also took mental health first aid training, and um, everyone should have, just like you have your school nurse, you have your um, someone at work, who you can talk to, your HR, person that you can talk to. You should also have someone at work, who can, you can talk to when you're having some sort of mental health crisis, right? I think everyone it should just be the norm. And the thing is, what I'm finding when it comes to people of African descent is, talking about mental health is not always the norm. In fact, some cultures don't have a word, a language for mental health, right? And so I think that we have to bring it up in conversation. It has to be, the same way you would have first aid, for someone who's injured, is the same way you need to have mental health first aid. You need to have someone trained, or you need to be aware or knowledgeable about the fact that someone could be in need of that type of aid, that type of help, right? So I think that we need to think about mental health as a part of us. We're not just a body. We're not just, our brains. We're emotional human beings, right? And we go through a lot and we carry a lot. And I think that when we're separating this part of ourselves, we're not being whole. One thing that I like to talk about when I do, any type of cultural workshops is mind, body, spirit. Sorry, mind, body, spirit, and we are all of these things combined. And so that's, to me, is the reason why, the purpose of mental health training and first aid.
I love that. I love the mental health, or the mental first aid is so important, and like concept I think that we really need to bring into our spaces. Well, with that, I just want to thank you so much for sharing your time and your experience and your wisdom. I mean, you bring so many different facets to you, and for folks who joined late, we will have this recording of this great conversation with Kahmaria. And I thank you again. And I wonder, for folks who want to work with you, whether that is through dance, or they want to try out your delicious smoothies, how can they connect with you?
Yes, if anyone wants to connect with me, they can connect with me on Instagram. Queen Kahmaria is my Instagram. And also, if they want to order some smoothies, we deliver every Sankofa Saturday. And so get your order in on Instagram at Made with Sankofa. And please, take advantage of this beautiful, way of intaking CMOS and boosting your immune system. Um, and please, we love to do all kinds of deals and packages. We have promotions all the time, so please order at Made with Sankofa.
Okay, thanks so much. You're getting thanks in the comments as well. And so we'll post your Instagram name with this with the replay of this. And for folks who want to work with me, I am doing a burnout program, 6 weeks or 12 weeks, and then I'll also be doing a healing circle over the winter for Black, Indigenous, or women and femmes of color. So I will be posting that on my Instagram page. So with that, thank you again, Kahmaria. It was so great to chat with you. And I'll pass it over to
Thank
Sophia.
you.
Oh my God. Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you so much, Kamaria, for jumping in and just, giving us all that flavorful information about ancestry, and mental health, physical health, and good food, because I eat some of those good foods. I love sea moss. I love all the juices and the blends from the Caribbean because my background is Caribbean. We are from the Caribbean islands, so it all resonates with me. The conversations have been so wonderful over these past weeks. It's been amazing. So, guys, make sure you guys stay tuned here for more conversations that are going to be coming up for the rest of December and into the new year. We've got lots of new programs coming, so continue to stay tuned. With that, I'm going to thank Emma for always being a great host and Kamaria again for coming in as a guest. You guys know that we're here on IG, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And with that, I will say farewell to all of you until we see you guys again. Thank you. See you again soon. Have a blessed
Thank
day.
you.